So we did have today, we're going over some of our financial tools and options. We did have some questions come in about how to run an event that has sponsors. I talked about it very, very briefly last week, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of riff on last week's session and talk about events with sponsors for just a second, and then we'll get into the kind of finance controls for most of today, and then we'll probably have some time left over for a Q&A at the end where we can cover anything we either didn't cover or review something that we did that we have questions about. Up first, I'm going to go over a few of the different ways you can have an event with sponsorships tied to it. So if you have someone contributing to an event that you're putting on, and they want to have their name as a part of the event or something, something to that effect, let's go through how you can set that up. So I'm in the control panel. I'm on the event manager page, which is under website. And if you go to events, I've got a few events already set up here. There's one that we did last week I'm going to use to demo one way. And then I actually set up, I referenced this last week, multi-activity events, which are a little bit more complex to set up, but I'll actually go over some of the differences that make it useful for hosting a large event with multiple sponsorship options and things like that. So first, let's take a look. This is just our training event too. We set this up last week, so you can see what we did at that time. But if we go in and click on the pencil to make changes to it, one of the first ways you can have an event that has sponsors, if you're having a simple event and the only really question you're asking is, are you attending or not? And then you want to have an option for, I'm attending, but I'm also an event sponsor, is you can go to the Who Can Register page. If you're having a single activity event, on the Who Can Register section, if you go to edit your registration types that we had already set up, this is one of the ways we can accept sponsors. So we have, obviously, we're already accepting active members, and we're already accepting members either in person or by Zoom, and we're charging different prices based on that. And we're using this same option. One thing you can do if you're hosting sponsors is you can add an extra option here, and we can say everyone, if we want to open this up to be, members can sponsor, but so can non-members, anyone who wants to give us money to make this event happen is welcome to. So that's where we can use this everyone option, and that'll be open to any website user can choose this. And we can give it the name event sponsor. And we can set a base price for a sponsorship. So I'm just going to say $500 is like, the beginning level of our sponsorship. And we can save that. And now anytime someone is registering, they would have the option to choose event sponsor, and they can pay $500 for the ability to be an event sponsor. Now that would make this available to everyone because we have this visibility set up. I know for some organizations, when they have an event sponsor, they don't necessarily want people to just be able to, sign up as a sponsor, because maybe you only have, room in your event for, maybe 5 sponsors. And with this event set up this way, there would not be a way to stop, the maximum. You could have 20 event sponsors and it might overwhelm you. It'd be great to get that much money, but not necessarily great for putting the event on successfully. We'll talk about using multi-activity events to limit that. So if you're going to do it this way, just know that there's not a way for us to limit how many different people of different registrant types attend if we're using the single activity option. One option you do have to limit that is we can make this not available, and we can make this administrator only. So I touched on this, setting this visibility option right here earlier. If we edit this event sponsor option and click on this pencil, so now you'll see the display name is back up there, event sponsor, and instead of save, we've got update. So this means we're making changes to this event sponsor registration. It loads our name and our price. We can change this to admins and coordinators only and update. And so now we're back to the event the way it was. We only have event in person and Zoom, but then we have this extra option for event sponsor, but this is not going to be publicly available. The visibility will only be there for administrators and coordinators. And so if someone calls us and says, hey, I want to be an event sponsor, and we can put information in our description section to say, if you want to sponsor this event, give us a call. And then we can use this option because we are administrators, but no one else can. So what that would look like is if we save this option, we can go back to our formatted description here. And this is where we've got our little logo. And we've got here's details about the event, but we can go in here and add an extra option, and we can say to be a sponsor. we can put our phone number in there, or you can put an email address, whatever you want to put in there to have people reach out to become an event sponsor. And if we save this, what this will look like, I'm going to click back to the event to go take a look at the event page. We've got our information. We've got our little, description, and we have this extra option that says to become an event sponsor, call this number. And we can choose whatever contact method we want to put here. We can put an email link. But once they reach out to us, we as administrators will see this event sponsor option at the bottom, but this is actually not going to be visible for our normal members or for our non-members. They will only see these two options because in those who can register settings, we set this to be admins only, which means for us, when someone calls, all I have to do is, as an administrator, when I click on register now, I get the option to sign someone else up. And so normal members won't see this primary registrant, myself, a non-member. They will just automatically be pre-filled to whatever they're logged in. So if they're a member, it's going to choose member for them. If they're a non-member, it's going to choose non-member for them. But we as administrators can say, I'm going to sign up someone else. And I can come in here and I can say, Ronnie gave me a call and said she wanted to sponsor this event. So I'm going to go to this page and select Ronnie. And then I'm going to choose event sponsor here from my registration. And I'll say I'm just registering Ronnie as an event sponsor. And I can process through this. And when I'm not going to send an email. When I finish this up, I can complete this registration. If I had left that checked, Ronnie would get an email saying, hey, you've been registered and now you owe $500. And all Ronnie has to do to give us the money for that event is either log in and pay by credit card or send us a check, however you want to set that up. But we can register her. And once she's registered, she'll be able to see that she's signed up as an event sponsor. We just have to, as administrators, be the one to select that option for her so that no one else has that option. Again, if we were to go back to our event and set this, sorry, I'm hopping back through all these steps. If we go back to our who can register page, this is the one. If we set this to, instead of admins coordinators, if we change this to everyone, one last time, that would be available for anyone to sign up, and they can do it on their own without having to call us. So we don't need to add that, call to become an event sponsor, but then we could have potentially as many sponsors as we want. So that's the way you would do event sponsorships on a single activity event. And that's probably the easiest way to set it up. Those two different options are probably the easiest way. There is a more complex, but possibly more customizable option, which would be to do a multi-activity event. So I went ahead before this training, I went ahead and set up an event so we can take a look at what that looks like. If we go to our control panel again, we're going to go back to events one more time. And this is events with sponsors. And this is set up as a multiple activity event. So to set up a multiple activity event, when you're in that first basic info screen, at the top, you'll see an option. It's gone now because I've already set it up as a multi-activity event. But at the top, you'll see, number of activities, single or multiple for the type of event. And if you choose multiple, when you create the event, you're going to have an extra option on this left-hand side over here. And that's going to be activities and items, where you can list multiple types of activities that are taking part in the event. And when people sign up for that event, they can actually choose from any activities that are available to them. So you can have things like, lunch is $15 and you can choose to sign up for lunch, or you can choose to bring your own. You can say, we're having a panel where someone is speaking and you can sign up to attend that panel or get tickets ahead of time. The way I've set this up is we're having an annual conference, and this is one activity that is our annual conference, and everyone signs up for this. So when we set up this event, it has its own little activities. So you can see it's got its own little card and its own little buttons, edit, registration fees, who can register. This is a miniature event inside our event as a whole. So here's the whole settings for all of our event. And then we've got this little card, which is its own little miniature event inside the bigger one. And when we set up the options for who can register for the event at large, we have those same options here. We've got a member ticket, we've got a non-member ticket, and then we've got an event sponsor. But what we do, you'll notice there's no price tied to this. When you're setting up a multiple activity event, there are no prices tied to the registrant type. The prices are actually tied to the activities. So when we go down to our activities at settings, we can go to the who can register page. So just like the event that we were working on earlier, where we set the price in the who can register, we actually set the price on who can register for each activity. So for our annual conference, we can select our registrant type, and you'll notice this list, instead of giving us the, active members or member guest or everyone, these are the registrant types that we have already set up for the event at large. And so these are pre-configured for us. And so we'll say, for attending the annual conference, our sponsors get in for free because they're sponsoring the event. Our member ticket is, let's say $30. And our non-member ticket is, $45. So our members are getting a $15 discount. Event sponsors are coming in for free. And so now I've set up my pricing for this activity. On the registration and fees, one step back, this is some basic information. This is similar to the registration and fees for the event that we set up earlier, where we can do things like track attendance. We can choose whether or not this is going to show up. So you'll always want to leave that to yes if it's something that people can select. But the important option for this one is this activity automatically added to the registration? This is something that you'll choose for each activity. And so you can either say no, yes, or yes, and it's required. So when someone is signing up for a multi-activity event, they get checkboxes, and they can choose from the list of activities. They will only be able to choose activities that we have set a price for that activity registrant. So because we have in our who can register page all three of these set up, this activity will show up as an option to check off for all of those types. I have an extra activity here called event sponsor. And for this one, I'm also going to set, yes, it's required. It can't be removed. You have to select this. But I'm going to do something special. I'm only going to add our event sponsor here. And this is where I can say it's $500 to become an event sponsor. And so now when people register, if you register as an event sponsor, you have to select this activity and this activity. And if you're registering as a member ticket, you can only choose this one. Because I have not added member ticket or non-member ticket here, non-members and members won't be able to sign up for the event sponsor activity. Now, this right now would function almost exactly the same as the event that we set up before. But we can actually choose an extra option. We can choose to make this optional. So let's edit this and let's set up multiple levels for sponsors. We can say, gold sponsor. And we can create an extra level of sponsorship, and we can call it, silver sponsor. So now we've created an extra activity here. We've got a gold and a silver option. And when we choose who can register, we can say this one is also available to event sponsors. I'll say it's $250. And now we can set these both to optional. Yes, but users can remove it. That's essentially saying this is an optional choice. So now when an event sponsor registers, they'll automatically have to select the event conference, but that's going to be free. And then they'll have the choice between gold and silver that they can select from, gold being $500, silver being $250. So if we go take a look at what that registration looks like, let's register as an event sponsor. So we'll go back, going to register an event sponsor. I'm going to select Ronnie again because she's sponsoring so many events. And we'll see they're selected, but I can deselect either. Oh, I forgot to set those. I should have set those to no, not yes. But if I set them to, no, they're not pre-selected, then they would be unchecked at first. And I could say I want to be a gold sponsor, check this box. And now my total registration price is $500. Or I can say I'd rather be a silver sponsor and it's $250. And I can make as many different activities as I want for every event. And you can choose different levels that someone would register for. They're automatically registered for the annual conference at $0 because they're an event sponsor. If someone signed up as a normal member ticket, because there's no price and there's no option set for gold or silver sponsor, this is not going to show up for our normal registrants at all. They would have to choose the event sponsor option. The last thing that makes a multi-activity event, I went back too far, really useful for event sponsors is you can individually limit each sponsorship level. So if we go back to one more setting in our multiple activity event here, I'm going to go back to my activities and items page. And for each of these two options, when I go to my registration and fees, there's an option for capacity. So this is our gold sponsor capacity. We can say we can have, there can only be 2 gold sponsors. And I can say, go to my registration for my silver sponsors, and I can say we can have 5 of these. Capacity is limited. We can have 5 of those. And now the event is going to manage the number of sponsors I can have for me. So once there are 2 people signed up for gold sponsors, this will no longer be available. And once there are 5 people signed up for silver sponsors, this will no longer be available. So it does take more configuration to do so. But once you set it up fully and you have your different levels and you can, have a maximum amount of sponsorships, it will automatically cut off those numbers for you. I know I ran through that a little bit quickly and there's a lot to it, but are there specific questions for hosting an event with sponsorships?
I have one.
Sure.
This is Kalista. In some of our events, our larger conferences, like a sponsor needs to register clearly, like to choose a package and that sort of thing, but they don't always, I'm going to say, for lack of a better description, attend the event. Like they attend the event because, they have a booth in their sponsor room and that sort of thing. And they have, they're allotted some meals and that sort of thing, but they're not always per se, attending our educational events. Is that something we would just make clear in the sponsor package area when we set the event up?
Sure. You can set a description for it. So if we go into this pencil for an activity, we can say, gold sponsors, sponsors do not need to, whatever you want to say here. And this is going to show up in the details when we're registering. So if we go to add a registration again, when we look at gold sponsor details, sponsors do not need to attend all activities. It's going to show up under the details when they click this little caret. You could also put that information for sponsors in the formatted description. I made this event without a formatted description because I just wanted something simple. But if we had a formatted description like before, you can put as many details as you want there. Additionally, I made this very simple for the moment, but if we were building like a full conference and we added a panel, let's say, speaker panel. So here's an activity for speaker panel, and this is an optional one. Even the people who are attending the conference at large don't necessarily need to attend every speaker panel. So this is maybe one of multiple speakers. And for our registration fees, we can say this is optional. That's what I should have set the other 2 sponsors to, by the way. This is, it doesn't pre-select it for you. This will pre-select it, meaning, by default, you're going to sign up for it, but you have the option to deselect it. This means it's not optional. You have to attend this activity in order to attend the event. So we can say, no, this is optional, save that. And then for our who can register, we can say, our members are allowed to attend it, but it's free for members. Our non-members pay, $5 to see this speaker, or we can make it free for non-members, however we want to handle it. And then we can say, if you're an event sponsor, it's optional. You can choose to attend this. So if we add them to the list, that means they can come to this panel if they want, but it's not required of them. And additionally, if we don't add them at all, we might say, sponsors are supposed to stay at their booth. They're actually not allowed to attend the panels. They have to stay in the sponsor area or something. We can take them off this list entirely, and it won't be an option for them to sign up for. But if we do add them, no, it's already there. There we go. Sometimes if you add and remove people back and forth, it can sometimes throw an error, but let's take a look. Who can register? Speaker panel. Well, I moved too quickly on my event. Let's try resetting the event. Sometimes if you get an error, this little button down here that says reset event, it's not going to undo any settings. It'll just refresh the event so that we should really change that terminology to refresh instead of reset, but that will fix errors if you run into them on an event sometimes.
Devin, can I ask a question about the difference between activity and item? Does it matter in terms of?
Yeah. Items are just like merchandise. So if you were going to have like a hat, an event hat, The main difference for an activity and an item is that an item can have a quantity. So if you have a hat, when you go to your registration fees for an item, it has the option to be, let's see, one per registrant or more than one. And you can say, the minimum is one. You have to buy one in order to attend. Maximum is you can buy 10 hats if you want. And then when you're registering, we have to set a price as well. Event hat, who can register? We'll say members. It's a $10 hat. So if we go register a member, they'll have this hat as an option and they can buy 10 hats if they want to.
And can you retrograde? So create a single activity event, but then need to add sponsor opportunities to that. You can't change it to a multi-activity event.
You can upgrade from a single to a multiple, but you can't downgrade from a multiple to a single. So when you're working on a single activity event in the database, it's actually the same thing as a multiple activity event. It just only has one activity and has no items. When you upgrade it to a multiple activity event, you get the ability to add multiple items. But once there's multiple items, there's no way to go back to a single activity because the system can't parse that information. So the way you would do that, if we wanted to say, this training event 2 that we set up last week, let's say, actually we're getting to the point where our registration is a little bit too complex. We need to change this to a multiple activity event. If we go into our basic info, there's that setting right there, activities, single, multiple. If I change it to multiple, I can actually save this. Now I have the activities and items section. The price has moved from who can register, and it actually pre-creates whenever I convert a single to a multiple, it will pre-create my first activity for me using the settings from that single activity event. And then I can from here add more and more activities. So it's going to be the default training event, but then I can add a hat or add, event sponsorships. Keep in mind, if you're converting an already existing event, the pricing for the one activity is going to pull from this information. So if we go look at who can register, all that pricing is still there. So we would need to update this if we wanted to move the sponsorships off of the training event at a whole and set up other sponsorships. We'd want to change this to 0 to set it up the way we did in the other locations. So now it's 0. And now I can go in and add my sponsorship activities.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Any other questions before I go on to the kind of like financial tools? All righty. I know creating a I kind of did like the fast and dirty version of creating a multi-activity event. There's a lot to it. If you're curious, shoot me an email and I will send you some more materials on multiple activity events. There's actually a lot to it. You can set up questions. So like if someone is a gold sponsor, you can say, hey, what's your logo? Hey, what's your slogan? What kind of things do you want? You can set up a lot of different kind of really interesting controls. And there's a whole bunch of reports for each activity and for the event as a whole. So there's a lot more to it, but we would run out of time very quickly if I went too in depth on it. I'm going to go back to my control panel and we're going to go ahead and start on our finance controls. So if we're back in the control panel, all of our financial controls are going to be found obviously under our money tab. This should be relatively quickly. There's not a lot of like turn on, turn off configuration items in the money tab. It's mostly reactive. It's mostly like running reports and looking at incoming and outgoing funds. For your chapters, the kind of first places you want to stop and make sure that is set up correctly are your bank accounts and your financial accounts. So if you are processing, events and having money incoming, you'd want to first make sure that you set up your bank accounts correctly. That's one of those things that once you set it up, unless your bank account changes, you never really need to go back to it. You just want to make sure that all of your bank accounts are set up correctly. One note about the like connection between bank accounts and financial accounts. Financial accounts is how we categorize incoming money. So ClubExpress has some pre-filled, well, the master accounts aren't going to show up here. If I add an account, you'll see them. So account type. ClubExpress has some already default financial accounts, master donations, master education, anything that says master in front of it. Those are our built-in system financial categorizations, and everything has to filter into one of these. We can obviously add more financial accounts. So we can say, we're having a master event registrations account, but we can say this is for our conferences. And we can categorize all money coming into our conferences further than just saying this is an event registration. We can manually enter an account number if we want to. We can also pick a bank account. So this is useful. Using financial accounts for this option is really useful. If you choose a bank account from this list, you might have, as an organization, multiple bank accounts. You might have a bank account for all of your event registrations and a bank account for all of your membership. If you want that money to be split up automatically for you, there is kind of a way to do that depending on how you set up your organization. So if you are using the ClubExpress merchant account processor, which we use, we're actually in the process right now of switching to Stripe as our parent kind of merchant account processor. If you use the one that we provide, then when we get those funds, when we process those transactions for you, we can actually divvy that money up into different bank accounts. So when you receive a conference registration, we can send that to our annual conference fund. And that way, we're not worried about, over pulling from our bank account for our conference, if that's not money that's available to us. If you, don't care about that, you can have it all go to the same bank account. If you do use things like a third-party merchant account processor or PayPal, we aren't able to tell PayPal or any third-party merchant account processor, hey, send it to this different bank account. They will only be able to send it to whatever primary bank account you set up with them. So things like PayPal and third-party merchant account processors aren't going to have the ability to divvy funds up. But if you add multiple bank accounts and you're using the ClubExpress merchant processor, you can split those funds up and they'll automatically go into the right bank account if you have multiple. Otherwise, you're just categorizing incoming funds so that when you run reports, it'll say, this is how much money I made from events, this is how much money I made from memberships, and so on and so forth. Bank account page. This is just, it's pretty simple. You can just add a bank account. It asks for bank details. When you submit it, you'll get an email from our accounting department, verifying some information. That's pretty much just something you would do once, set it and forget it. The other things you would want to do on this page, if you need to sign up for a ClubExpress merchant account processor or connect your PayPal account or connect a third-party processor, you would do all those connections from your money options page. This is where you have controls for things like, are you charging sales tax? Do you have a tax ID that you need to include in your emails? Do you need to fill in like other payment options? If you say, oh, you can pay us through Venmo. Here's our Venmo account, and you can send it to us and we'll record it.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
Since you're not set up with Stripe just yet, and we use Stripe, is this where we would set up our Stripe account?
It is. So at the moment, when you we do connect with Stripe already. When you call our support team as you're setting up, you can say, hey, can you enable my Stripe application? And there will be an extra little button that will pop up here. So we can't see it right now because the site hasn't been fully enabled, but there will be an extra option right in this area near the PayPal section to configure your Stripe account.
Oh, perfect. So our account's already been configured right there, so we can just set up our account then. Okay, that's perfect.
You should be able to do that. And then the same with PayPal. It'll work roughly the same way PayPal does. You just click this button, log into your, professional PayPal account, connect it, and you're good to go. I would go into some QuickBooks information. If you use QuickBooks for accounting, we have, I think, an older webinar. I don't know a lot about QuickBooks. I know a lot about ClubExpress. I don't know a lot about QuickBooks. So all I know as far as the QuickBooks integration goes is if you do choose to enable QuickBooks, I think it's a one-time, I think it's $500. We can actually work with either QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop. And all it really does is whenever you sync, it will export every bit of financial data you've had from the last time that you exported. And it'll pull in an Outlook file or a QuickBooks file that will connect to your QuickBooks and update your QuickBooks with all the information that the website has processed. In terms of like configuration on the QuickBooks side, that's above me. So the other kind of important sections for financial processing There are a few really important tools that especially your treasurer should pay attention to. If you are looking for membership transactions, this transaction search is a very useful way to kind of like take a look at it. It does say pending transactions here, but you can kind of ignore that. That's the default, is it's only going to look for transactions that haven't been processed. You can actually use this page to look for transactions that have already been processed. So when we go to our transaction search, you can come here, you'll see the default is unpaid in our search for transaction status, and it's going to look for unpaid transactions, but you can swap that to paid. You can also swap that to all and say don't filter based on paid. So that earlier page where it said pending transactions, it's not, only pending. You can also come in here and look for things like, transactions by someone's name. You can search by company. So if you have a certain company in your organization and you want to find not just from a certain member, but from every member of that company, you can search by company. It'll show you all the transactions from that company. But really, this is just a great way to get a quick glance at all of the transactions that have been processed. It'll sort them. Usually it'll sort them by either the membership name, but you can also sort by date and say, show me all of my recent transactions, and it'll give you a list of them here. So here's our membership event registration that we set up earlier. And there's that $500 that Ronnie owes. If there's a transaction that is open that hasn't been paid, it'll be marked as unpaid right here. You'll also be able to tell because there will be a $sign right here. So these little icons to the right-hand side, you'll get a little receipt option that'll give you details of that transaction. You'll get a little $sign. And if you click on that, it'll take us to the make a payment page. So if Ronnie sends us a check, this is one of the places we can go click on this $sign and we can say, we received a check. I can fill in the check number and record that payment. And now that $500 transaction has been marked as paid by check, and the other two icons will disappear. So this is one of the places you can go. If someone sends you a check, you can just quickly pull up their name, see their open transaction, click on the $sign, mark it as paid, and you're done. That's really all you have to do to record someone's payment when they send you that information. There was an actual icon here. It was the reports icon that would just let you print an invoice for it if you wanted to get a PDF invoice and email it to them. I'll pull that up here in a few minutes so that I can undo this transaction and pull out that report and show you what that invoice looks like. So that's our transaction search. It's pretty basic. It doesn't have a lot of controls in it. It's just simply a pretty simple search for transactions. The next option over is our open credits page. So we talked last week about when you cancel an event, someone will get a credit for that amount. And we talked very briefly about doing refunds. If you're using the ClubExpress merchant processor and someone has paid by credit card, you will have the option to refund them. I don't think there's anyone with any open credits right now, but anyone that has a credit on their account will show up in these search results. Sorry, I have the hiccups for some reason. Anyone that has an open credit will show up here on this page. If they paid by credit card, you will have the option to refund directly back to their credit card. But again, only if you're using the ClubExpress credit card merchant processor. If you're using a third party, you would have to have that third party be the one to credit them back, because if we sent them money back, there's no way for us to tell PayPal, hey, we sent them money, give us money back. Otherwise, this is just a page you can come to manage credits. This is also a page you can come to add a credit. So if someone has done a service and you want to give them money, you can just manually say, I want to give Ronnie money. I'm going to give Ronnie $15. This is a demo site, so none of this matters. So I can say, we're going to give Ronnie $15 for helping us fundraise, Man, one of these days I'll learn how to type. And then here's where we can say, this is a part of our donations. Helped us raise funds. We're going to give her a $15 credit towards her next purchase. So we can call it a discount. We can call it whatever we want to. It's however we want to categorize that credit. And when we save it, she'll show up on this list. The date is today. It's for Ronnie. She assisted in fundraising. The status is available because it hasn't been used. And the next time Ronnie processes a transaction, this $15 will show up as a credit for her to use. If we wanted to, say, oh, actually, we gave that to her in error, or someone has a credit that they shouldn't have, we can click on this pencil And you can choose options to, mark it as refunded, saying we gave Ronnie that money back. We can waive it, saying, hey, Ronnie said we can keep the remaining balance. She doesn't actually want to use it. Or we can cancel it, saying, Ronnie was not supposed to have this $15 credit for one reason or another. The next page we have on here is our multiple charges and credits. This is similar to adding a credit on this page, and it's similar to that credit card icon we looked at several weeks ago when we were looking at the people manager. There was a page where you could, there's a button where you can manually add a credit or a charge to someone's account. This will let us do it in a bulk way. So if you ever have a situation where multiple people need to receive either a charge or a credit for some reason. So if you had a bunch of people help run an event and they're all going to get that $15 credit, we can say we're going to give everyone a credit. Oopsies, did not mean to click that button. Give everyone a credit for $15. We'll say this is a discount for helped raise funds. We'll call this donations. And we can search for people here. We'll also get a list of all of our members. There's only 3 members on this website, but if you had 100 members, this list would be 100 people long. And you can either manually double click, you can click and use these little arrows to move people around, or you can even control click. So if I click control and hold it down, I can click on multiple people all at once and move them all over. But whoever is selected, when I hit save here, those credits have been recorded. So now all 3 of those people have received an additional $15. So now if I go back to my open credits, I've got Ronnie in here twice because I, double gave Ronnie $15. I can say, ooh, that was an accident. Ronnie should only have 1 instance of $15 for helping. I'll cancel one of them. And now Ronnie has fallen off the list. And now I have just those 3 people that I had help raise funds, and they all have $15. So that's one way I can do it. I can do the same thing with a charge. I can say these people, attended something for whatever reason you need to charge multiple people. It's, the multiple charges doesn't happen a lot, but if they owe for some reason, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons to do it. I can't come up with one off the top of my head. We'll say they all owe $10. And we'll say this is for merchandise. They got 3 hats for some reason. We can do the same thing. And I will charge all 3 of them $10. And those charges have been recorded. And if we go to our transaction search, now I have 3 outstanding charges. There's those dollar signs for me to submit those payments again. They have not been paid yet. They've just been charged this selected amount. It's a miscellaneous charge. And here's that invoice option I was talking about earlier. This lets us just print membership invoices. I can print an invoice just for this transaction, or I can actually print an invoice for all transactions for that member. If I choose transaction, it'll give us an invoice only for this one transaction. But again, if I choose member invoice, any outstanding transactions that member has, not just this one that I've selected, will be pulled. And what those look like are this. It just lets us know why we owe. It lets them know that they have an available credit. If they have one, it'll tell them how much they owe. Just a little invoice so they can see, hey, you owe us money. This demo site doesn't have information filled in, but if there is, if your financial information is filled in, it'll give an address where they can send a check, and you can actually just print this out, wrap it up, put it in an envelope, and send it on to them. You'll notice when I run this report, there's 2 different options for each one. There are different envelopes you can send financial letters in, and it'll actually make this invoice in a way. So if we are printing using the double window envelope or a single window envelope, if we run these, it will place the mail to information. So here's Michael's information. It'll place this right where if you fold it up correctly, that will show through on a windowed envelope. That way you can just fold it up, stick it in there, and you don't even need to write their address on it. It'll show up on a windowed envelope.
Is there not a way to just click an email button and email the invoice to them?
They for I don't think there's an email invoice button. I think you
Okay.
can see this does come as a PDF. And so you can just save it instead of printing it. You can use this button up here in the top right to download it,
Okay.
and it will download it. And you can just send that to them as an email instead if you didn't want to send them paper mail.
Okay.
I don't think there is a button to send invoice emails, not for miscellaneous charges. Most times, so like for our event registration charges, they will get an email. They'll automatically get an invoice email. The only time they won't automatically get an email is for a miscellaneous charge.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
So all of these ones, they will have received an email about it. These miscellaneous charges are the only ones you'd have to do manually. Bank account activity. This is similar to our transaction search. Oh, there's no bank accounts for me to view, so that's why it's not going to work. I don't have a bank account attached, so I can't show this off in its entirety. But all this is it's just like the transaction search. Instead of looking for transactions between your organization and your members, this is transactions between ClubExpress and your organization. So there's really two primary types of transactions you'll see in here. If you're using the ClubExpress payment processor again, you'll see the remitted funds transactions here. So whenever you have collected money from your members and we send that money to your bank account, those transactions will be here. And you can actually go in here and look at the details of those transactions to see where did that money come from, who ran a transaction, and how much did we get. We would see that Ronnie paid us $500. If she'd paid by credit card for this, it would show up in our remit funds, and we can see, hey, we got $500 from Ronnie and $10 from Michael, and so on and so forth in that option. This is also where you'll see your payments to ClubExpress for your monthly fee for your website. So it'll let you know, how much, if it's, $30 or $50, you can look and make sure that it matches your bank account. So this is just a place where you can make sure that whatever you're seeing on your banking app or on your banking website, or whenever you get your bank statements for your organization, you can make sure it matches up to what we're saying, keep us honest.
And just to confirm, there isn't any charges for that's covered by NIGP in terms of the monthly charge.
Okay, so that's probably set up behind the scenes. You might not see those monthly charges in the bank account activity, but that is where you should see your bank account remits when we send money to you. Discount coupons are interesting. This is where you can create codes. I won't spend too much time on this because they don't get used very often, but you can create coupon codes. So if we create a category, I need to create a category first. We'll just make a coupon category. When you create a coupon, you can say this is a coupon for, event voucher. And did someone have a question?
I just think this would come in handy for scholarships, maybe.
Oh yeah, scholarships would be great. Wow, I've really forgotten how to spell today.
Or if our board gets free registration, we give them a code, we can use that. We can do that here.
Absolutely, yeah. You can set an expiration date for it, saying, if you don't use it by the 4th, you don't get it. You can also leave expiration date blank. So you'll notice anywhere there's a red dot, that means it's required. If there's not a red dot, it means we can actually leave this blank and there's no expiration. We can set our status to pending, published, or closed. Pending means I'm still working on it. Published means it's ready to get used. Closed means we're shutting it down. So for now, I'll set it to publish. We can choose where does the money for this coupon come from. This is a scholarship, so we'll have this be membership dues, meaning this is a scholarship that's coming out of what we would normally charge for membership dues. Just like with events, there's an option to archive it. Being archived just means we're putting it in the back. We don't want to see it anymore. It's still accessible. There's that include archive coupons. Just like with events, we can archive it to make it disappear if we want to. There's two different types of coupons we can make. You can make a dollar amount coupon saying you're getting a $50 scholarship to be a member of the organization. Or if your scholarship means you get a free ride, you can just do 100%. And this is going to be a full full scholarship for your membership, and whatever dues are being paid will come out of that. You have an option to make this available to members only, non-members only, anyone. For a scholarship, you would want to say anyone because they're in that process where they're changing from a member to a non-member. So just to make sure that it works smoothly, you would set it to anyone. What you would do is you can choose what this voucher will apply to. So if someone gets this code, we can say this is only used for a new membership. You can say this is only for renewals, or you can say it's for membership renewals or new memberships. That means, I can use this code to renew or join again. There's also an option for event registrations, or if you have a storefront, you can also use it for storefront purchases. Otherwise, you can set it to any charge, and I can use that scholarship to get 100% off on anything. You wouldn't necessarily want to do that because then they could get a scholarship for their membership and then use that same code to then also get a scholarship for, or use that code to apply for an event. So in this case, for a scholarship, we would want to say, new members. We're going to give people new member scholarships for joining the organization. We can also select a coupon type. So you can say this is multiple use single code, meaning I can hand this one code out to anyone, and I can say, 1, 2, 3, free. And then on the payment page, there is a place, in big bold text, it says coupon code, and they can just put that coupon in that section and they would get free membership. You can also say this can only be used 10 times, and this will tick down every time someone uses this code. The other type of code you have is multiple code, single use. And so we can say number of codes, 10, code prefix, 1, 2, 3, or we'll do 3. And if you save something with multiple codes, single use, it will give us this codes option. And so now there's 10 codes, and these are the codes we can hand out. And each of these can only be used once. And once this code has been used, it can never be used again. So then we can give these codes out, and they're each one-off codes to be used for membership. The other option would be if we had set it to the single code multiple uses. You'll notice now that we've saved it, when you save a coupon, it locks a lot of those settings in place. So we can't go in and change the code. We can't change this. So make sure that when you're ready to save, you're ready. You like the way it's saved, but don't worry if you make it wrong. Not a big deal. You can just archive it and it'll set it to close and you can start over. Not a big deal. So that's a coupon code. It's pretty useful for, various different purposes. It just lets people get, either a % or a dollar amount off a particular type of transaction. And then, giving out those codes, that's entirely up to you. You can give it out in person. You can write it on a piece of paper. You can send it as an email, however you want to manage that. The last thing I'll talk about for financial section is our reports. This is probably the most important part of the money tab, is just this reports page right here, because everyone wants to keep track of their incoming and outgoing funds. And so if you click on this reports option right here, we have so many financial reports. But just like with a lot of the other reports tabs, we actually sort all of the reports in these categories by their most used report. The two reports that I like to use absolutely the most are user transactions and user payments, and the top ones in both of these. So for user transactions, when I click on that category of reports, this member user transactions by type, that's the one I use absolutely the most. Because when I select that, I can then filter it by a few things. I can filter it by transaction type. So when I say transactions, this is, I signed up for an event, I, renewed my membership, I did any sort of things. This isn't going to give us the amount of money we necessarily collected for it. It's just going to let us know, what are people doing? How many of these are, being processed? I can filter this report. I can say, I want to know all of my transactions, or I want to know a specific type of transaction. I want to know how many new members have paid, and I can say paid only. And so if I ran this report, I would get all of my new member paid transactions, so I can see exactly how much money has been paid for new member signups. I can also do things like show me all of my new member signups that have not been paid or are partially paid. So that means these are people that still owe me money for their new memberships. Or I can say, I want to see, all of my outstanding miscellaneous charges, all of my membership renewals. So I want to see everyone that has renewed but not fully paid for it. There's a lot of useful combinations in here that you can look at and find out, a lot of information about incoming and outgoing transactions. The same is true for payments. So on our user payments screen, instead of looking at transactions, our payments are going to look at how did people pay for things. So this first one, just plain old user payments, that's also my favorite one in this list. This is where we can go in and say, show me either all of my payments, show me all of my credit card payments. How much money did I make from credit cards? How much money did I make from PayPal? How many comps did I give? So there's an option for comp. And you can see, hey, administrators are allowed to comp people. How much money did we give out for free? There's also an option, I believe, for, discount coupon. See how much money in coupons did we hand out. If you want to see, if it's the end of the year and you want to put out a little newsletter and say, hey, we gave out $5,000 worth of scholarships this year. Isn't that amazing? We were able to do that because of our donations. There's a ton of really useful reports by filtering based on payment type. And then you can also, this is an important one that a lot of people forget. You can search for payment type. If you want to only see incoming money, you can filter out your comps and your write-offs. That way you're not going to see, funds that actually weren't processed by the organization. If you do choose, so a lot of our payment options, Stripe and the ClubExpress built-in Stripe merchant account processor have the options for retaining credit cards, and people can set up an auto billing option. If you do have that set up, there's an option to run a report on your bad credit card. So that's one other report in here that I recommend. If you do have an automated recurring payment option, your treasurer should get emails automatically whenever someone has their credit card bounce. But, if for some reason those emails, I know we send out dozens of emails all the time and maybe it slips through, this is one of those reports that if you have automated payments, maybe come check this report out, once every month or two, just to make sure you're staying on top of people that need to update their payment information. That's pretty much most of the kind of the money tab, the financial controls. I will take a quick second to go over and click on this configure button and show you some of the other options that are in here. So when you click the configure button on any tab of the control panel, it's the same button no matter what tab you're on. But if you're on the money tab and you click here, this is the list of all of the functions that are available in the control panel. And you'll see this line that says disabled modules. Anything below that hasn't been turned on. And there's two modules here that we haven't turned on. It's our storefront module, and we'll go ahead and activate that, and our donations module. And once you turn a module on and save, they should pop up here. This is our donations module, and this is just a simple module that you can configure and say, we have these funds. So we can open this up and say, I want to add a general operating fund. All my general funds. You can list things like target amounts, how much people can donate. So you can say, we don't take $1 donations, but we do take a minimum of $10. We won't take donations over $500 just for tax reasons, maybe. If there's legal limits, if there's no limit, you can leave it blank. You can set a goal. Just because you set a goal doesn't mean you won't be able to take more reservations. You can actually go past your goal, but you can let people know, hey, we're trying to raise, $50,000 this year. And once you save a fund, it'll show up here. Oh, I didn't set it to active. There we go. Once your fund is active, that's really all it takes to create a donation fund. And then for our members, if we put that on our menu, it'll just look like this. There's a little bar that shows us we currently have $0 towards our goal of 50,000, and members can choose to donate, and they can just fill in a donation. Since I'm an administrator, I have the option to record for someone else, but they wouldn't see that option. They would just see the option to donate for themselves, fill in their donation information. They can make a gift, they can fill in additional options. That's all controllable by the donation. It's a fairly simple module. It's one of those things that you just kind of go down the list, read all the settings, and check and uncheck whatever applies to your organization. The storefront, I won't go too deep into. The storefront would take way too much time. It's a very complex module. If you do sell merchandise or digital content to raise money for your organization, I would recommend just reaching out to me. We have 2 really in-depth videos that go super, super detailed on how to add products, how to manage products. There's an inventory tracker built in. You can actually set up shipping costs based on region. So you can say if you're in California, it automatically calculates, hey, this shirt weighs 1.5 pounds. If you're shipping 1.5 pounds to California, it costs this much in shipping, and it'll auto calculate that for you. So once you set it up, you don't have to tell someone how much it's going to cost to ship. It'll calculate it for you. But setting all of that up is rather complex. So we have 2 kind of 45-minute videos that go into how to configure a storefront. So if you're interested in those, let me know. I don't have the full time at the moment to do so.
I have a question about the Stripe accounts. What is the difference between like the Stripe account we already use that, you know, we would want to link to our profile versus the account that you guys have, like that you guys maybe already have set up with?
In terms of like rates and what it would mean for you guys, pretty much nothing. I think the rates are almost exactly the same, if not literally exactly the same. The main difference is that we didn't used to use Stripe. So there's really no reason not to use the ClubExpress Stripe account once it becomes available, which should probably be in the next like 2 weeks here. I think it's actually already available for some organizations. We finished it up a couple weeks ago and we're starting to roll it out. Everyone who is on the old ClubExpress merchant processor should be moved to the Stripe one in like about 2 weeks.
So if we already have a Stripe account, like would it like I'm just trying to I'm trying to figure out the difference between our Stripe account versus like you guys a Stripe account and like the difference like in how we set it up and what we use.
I don't fully know if you having a Stripe account changes anything on the ClubExpress side. That's something I'd have to look into. Let me grab an email that was sent to me. I will forward, if it's not already been sent to you, I will forward. There's a little like info email that was sent out to all of our administrators, letting them know like, hey, this is what's changing. From what I understand, instead of using your own Stripe account, it would be using the ClubExpress Stripe account through our website. It wouldn't be, if you have like a special rate with Stripe, then that would be different. And that'd be something. But if you're just using a fairly standard Stripe account to process transactions, I don't think there's necessarily a drawback to using the ClubExpress one. There's only a benefit in that you can divvy things up to different bank accounts and you can then automatically process your own credit card refunds instead of having to manually do it through Stripe.
So if we process a credit card refund, there's, that I'm going to like on $50, it's $1.25 that's taken out. How does that work for refunding like the Stripe fee?
If I don't know. On the ClubExpress one, I know formerly, I don't think there was a fee. I don't think there was a fee at all, if I remember correctly. But that might have changed with our system. So I don't fully know the answer to that at the moment. I'd have to find that out for you.
Okay.
But to apply for the ClubExpress payment processor, that's a rather involved process, right? So that takes a while, I know, and you have to submit all kinds of documentation and stuff, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, there is an approval process. I think they're working on getting the time frame for that down to about 5 days. It just requires a lot of documentation up front. It's now that it's going through Stripe, it should be the same documentation that you had to give to Stripe in the first place.
Okay, so maybe it's just easier that we use our own setup account for now to get up and running, and then can we switch that if we need to?
Definitely.
Okay, so maybe we'll just use ours now and then just.
Yeah, there's no problem with using what you have at the moment. If you ever decide to switch, it just gives you more options.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So if we do decide to switch, would we contact Stripe directly, or would
you can contact
take care of it?
Yeah, you would contact us. You would give support a call. I would give it 2-3 weeks at the minimum.
Yeah, that's fine.
Give it give it a month just to be safe, and then give support a call if you say, hey, I'm interested in swapping to the, ClubExpress payment processor so I can divvy up my banks and process credit card refunds.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking, I was wondering maybe if we could just contact Stripe directly and see if they could move. They already have all the paperwork. So anyway,
Maybe.
we'll
I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know on that. I think it
Okay.
has to be resubmitted through us, if
Okay.
I'm remembering correctly.
All
If
right.
it's anything like any of the other website stuff, everything has to be resubmitted.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
So we can set up our own for now and then look at transferring this over maybe this summer, Krista.